Welcome back to Chapter 2 of our cruise planning class. In this chapter, we will consider some of the factors for choosing a boat to go cruising. Let's get started. Sailboats. If you look at about the difference between powerboats and sailboats, it's really kind of an attitude of the owner. Powerboats are for those that want to get somewhere quick. They know where they want to go and they want to get there quickly. Whereas sailboats, they're more along the let's go where we end up, and the fun is in getting there, not so much how quickly it takes us to go. One of the things that sailboats have is you sacrifice a little space for sailing performance. So if you want to go faster on a sailboat, you're going to have less space than on a bigger, heavier boat. One of the factors that I think is important, when choosing, cruising boats come in all sizes. There are people that have crossed the Atlantic in 14-foot boats. Now they're very constrained, space constrained. Whereas if you want to take your whole family, like I mentioned earlier, we needed to get a pretty big boat in order to have enough space for all the members of our family. So we ended up in a 50-foot boat rather than a 40-foot boat, just so that we had enough room. One of the other factors that's kind of, I think, attractive for a sailboat is they've got an infinite range. If you have a power boat, your range is constrained by how much fuel you can fit aboard. Whereas with a sailboat, we're able to go longer distance by using our sail power, and then we're not constrained by how much fuel. Now, we still might have time constraints, because if the wind dies, your boat is just going to sit there bobbing until the wind picks up again. Whereas with a power boat, you just turn the engine on and go. Again, same way with the power boats, other boats. Used boats might be a better value starting out, because even with a power boat, there's a lot of support equipment. On sailboats, there's even more things needed to make it go. Design is also a factor in sailboats. Do you want to get a monohull, a single hull, or a catamaran with multiple hulls? There are trade-offs in each one of those things. The sail configuration is also a factor that we talked in our sail and boat handling class a little bit. Whether you get a catch or a cutter or a yawl or a schooner, those are all different configurations that have some different advantages, and over time. As time's gone on, the design changes. Sailboat designs have changed. For example, back 50 years ago, people liked the multiple mast systems, a catch or a cutter or a yawl, just because the masts are shorter, and then the sails are smaller, so that it's easier for fewer people to handle. Whereas now the equipment that are on these boats are much more modern. The boat we sailed in our last charter, to raise the sail, we actually had a winch to raise the sail, but it was electric. So you just press the button in and raise the sails. Whereas, in the older days, maybe only 10 years ago, electric winches weren't really available except on the luxury yachts. And now they're commonplace on smaller boats, and you don't have to grind it up. Old guys like me don't have to grind it up, and you can just press the button and raise them up. The design consideration has also changed, where they're putting more space down below, for people to get more space for people to be on board. The design capabilities are beamier, which give more cabin space for people. We've also got to consider as auxiliary power. Once a sailboat's, if you've got a charter, a cabin boat that's on a cruise, well, we do need an engine on those still, because we need an engine to get through our locks and canals and into harbors where a smaller, like when I'm sailing my Laser or Thistle, we don't need an engine on that because the boat is so responsive, but we're also not going to take it through a lock or a canal because we need an engine power to do that. In addition, we also need auxiliary power perhaps for when dealing against tides and things like that. The weather is also a factor to consider. And I hadn't thought about this until I started taking this, worked on this class. If you look at the boat designs on the East Coast, boats are designed more for calmer weather, let's say, because they don't have as heavy as conditions. Whereas on the West Coast, boats designed for West Coast handling, the winds are stronger, like in San Francisco Bay, for example. The winds are really much stronger than we see typically on the East Coast, where they're more, calm. So the boats that are designed for those areas have different characteristics to do that. Let's look at a couple boats that are typical of what we might use on our BVI Flotilla. In the past, we have used mostly monohulls in the 40-foot range. There's a lot of boats in this category that are just really sweet sailing. If we need more for more people to be on board, we can get a larger boat, and there are a few smaller boats, but the 40-foot boats just seem to be in the sweet spot. The part about them that I like is that they have generally 3 cabins and 2 heads. 2 heads are bathrooms. What we found is people that have gone on previous flotillas kind of like having their own bathroom when they're on board. And so we've got a bathroom in this one in the front and then a shared bathroom in the back. When we have sailed with 2 couples, we often get a 3-cabin boat and then use the 3rd cabin for our storing additional stuff. Now, the sailing characteristic of these boats are very good. They're similar to what we might experience at a cabin boat at Clinton Lake or other in the Midwest. Those of you that have gone through the sailing training that we've done on Evergreen Lake or Clinton Lake with the smaller boats, those are very, very responsive to change. You change the helm, the boat immediately responds. These boats are actually easier to sail because everything takes longer to do. So if you move the helm, you need to count to about 10 and then the boat will start to turn. And those things are just all, it's just bigger mass, bigger momentum, and everything seems to happen slowly. But it's very, it's very similar to what we experience when we're sailing on locally. There are also people interested in sailing catamarans. Now these things are just giant boats in my estimation. Typically they have 4 cabins with double berths. They typically have 1 or 2 heads between the cabins. Now each one of these hulls is almost like a 40-foot monohull joined together by a superstructure in the middle, which is the galley and the salon. The sailing characteristics of these are quite a bit different, though, because they are wide and flat. They are much taller and much more mass that creates a lot of momentum. So while the 40-foot monohull is slow to respond, these things turn even slower. Now, one of the the values that makes them easier to handle is they have 2 engines, an engine in each hull that allows us to use those for steering and helps overcome some of the windage that's part of the boat. When we've used the moorings and sunsail charter companies in the past, they're both at the same place. The moorings and sunsail are actually the same company under the same parent, so all the stuff goes together. There's just a little bit of difference in the boats that they use. Now, when we're ordering our boat or contracting for our boat, there's really three classes of boats that we can do. The moorings calls them exclusive plus, exclusive, and club, whereas the sun sailboats use premier plus, premier, and classic. So essentially, the plus boats are brand new boats that are less than 1 year old. So you're not going to see much wear and tear on those boats at all. The exclusive yachts are between 1 and 3 years old, and they're in pretty good shape. The last few times we've gone down there, we've gone into that exclusive category, being the 1 to 3 year old group. The club boats are still well maintained, but they're starting to show a little more wear and tear as they age through the fleet. These boats get a lot of use. They're out sailing every week almost, with new people sailing them, learning how to sail on those boats just like we will be. And so they take a few dings and such as they get through this stuff. This concludes our talk on Chapter 2, A Boat for Cruising. Please bring your questions to the next live video training session. We will also go over the homework questions at the end of the chapter. I look forward to talking with you then. Have a good week.